Welcome to PTI BetterGradesFast.com multimedia sessions. Today it's the short story we're looking at. And we're going to look at the first element of the short story, which is plot. Now, plot refers to the series of incidents that tell a story. What do I mean by the series of incidents? Well, let's take a look at it. You walk down the road, you see an accident, somebody is injured, you begin to call for help, the ambulance comes, takes the person away to the hospital. Those are incidents. One thing happened, it led to something else, it led to something else, and so on. That's what we mean by a series of incidents. And every short story has a plot and has a series of incidents. Today, let's take a look at the famous short story, folktale, fable, Hansel and Gretel. Let's see what happens in Hansel and Gretel. It's a simple story, and I'm going to count down the incidents. 1. The wicked stepmother abandons Hansel and Gretel in the forest. 2. Hansel is pretty smart, so he leaves a trail of breadcrumbs to get back home. 3. Birds begin to eat the breadcrumbs, so poor Hansel can't get back home. 4. Hansel and Gretel find a house in the woods. It's made of candy and everything nice. 5. They begin to eat the house because they're so hungry. 6. An old woman, a hag, a witch, comes out of the house, invites them inside. 7. The old woman gives them food and so on. Next thing, they pass out. 8. They wake up, find themselves trapped in an iron cage, and they have to get out. And the old hag says, no, you remain right there. She begins to feed them. 9. When they're fat enough, she says, okay, you're ready for my oven. I'm going to eat you up. I'm a cannibal. She opens the cage, takes out Hansel and Gretel. 10. When she lights the oven, Gretel, in a fit of, I suppose, rage and bravery, shoves the old witch in the oven. The witch dies. The story ends. Hansel and Gretel end up getting everything in the house and they become rich. 10 incidents, or 11 incidents, 12 incidents, it tells a story. A famous story at that. Very gruesome, but it's a folktale for little kids. Don't ask me why, but it's one of the best stories I remember as a child. Now, today we're going to practice writing about incidents. We're going to practice creating plots. The thing about a plot is that a plot must have some problem. Hansel and Gretel had a wicked stepmother. They encounter a witch. Major problems. If you write a story about two children going out in the woods and having a picnic and coming back home, there's no problem there. It isn't exciting. And we want our plot to be exciting. Okay? Now, there are 5 main parts of a plot that tells the incidents. So, if you would follow me here on the whiteboard, let's take a look at it. Our plot moves like this. It's like a line. It begins at one place, so it starts here, and it ends at another. So it starts, it ends. Now, along the way, we must have problems. We can't have a flat line, kids going in the forest, having a picnic and coming back home. No. We need to have major problems or incidents. So, a story builds from the start up to a high point, then it works itself out. So, the story moves at different levels. From the start, building to some major problem, some major conflict, and then it ends when everything works itself out. Now, we can divide this triangle from the start of the story to the end of the story that tells a plot, and I can draw a line. Starts here, it moves along into 5 segments. The first segment here is the exposition. What happens in the exposition is that we learn about our characters. The start of the story. So the wicked stepmother abandons poor Hansel and Gretel in the forest. That's the start. That's the exposition. That leads to a further problem. Here, as it continues, we call it the rise in action. So I can separate that. This is the first stage, 1. The second stage, rising action. What happens in rising action is that more things occur. Hansel leaves the breadcrumbs, but it's eaten by birds. They find a house. They're welcome inside the house. So the plot is building. And it's building to the high point that we call the climax. And in this high point, what happens? The witch puts them in a cage, locks them up, begins to feed them. She wants them nice and fat like me. So lots of meat, she can eat them and have a great meal because she's a cannibal. That's our climax. It's the main part of the story. It's the main conflict where the character can win or lose. Hansel and Gretel can either be cooked in the oven or they can escape. The next stage of plot, and I'll draw my line here, this is the third one, 4th, is falling action. Here, the events begin to work themselves out. So, the witch takes them out of the cage. She lights the oven. And Gretel, the girl who you wouldn't think is the brave one, she shoves the witch in the oven. She kills the witch. It's a fallen action. Hansel and Gretel save their butts. Okay? And the last stage of plot, things work themselves out. We call it the resolution. And a resolution means things work out okay or things end. So, the resolution, the witch dies, Hansel and Gretel gets the entire house, they're rich beyond measure. That's how our plot flows. Okay? I want to remind you that we have, along with this tutorial, a workbook, lots of information. Print it out, read it, follow. Okay? Thank you for choosing PTI, BetterGradesFast.com. I'll see you soon.